والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. طيب, we have, I think, right now maybe around 18,000 emails with questions that were sent to the different email addresses we have. And obviously it's very difficult to get back to all of those, but you guys have today an opportunity to get your questions put in front of all those 18,000 emails. So inshallah, we're going to have the question answer session now, and then after Isha, inshallah, we'll have the talk with Sheikh Al-Kasha. Thank you. Ground rules. So, you can ask any question here. I mean, this is not going to be on a particular subject. You can ask. Also, if you're watching online live, you can put the questions in the chat, and we'll have Brother Ibrahim read them, and I will answer them, inshallah, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a question answer time, not debate time. So if I answer your question, you don't like it, tough. Not going to go back and forth. You want to debate and come to the party. Inshallah, we'll begin. If you have a question, raise your hand. MashaAllah, you beat everybody to it. And as I see your hand, I'll call on you and you can ask your question. And if I don't see your hand, I mean, maybe the light or something's in the way, make yourself visible. If I'm answering a question, wait, don't raise your hand, because then it just makes me feel like I gotta wrap it up or something. I have
a question about saying Bismillah before we start wudu. If the shower is a glass door, or if you're in the wudu area or the toilet's open, or like the door of the toilet's open, would that affect anything?
Great question. Regarding saying Bismillah at the time of wudu, and if you're in a place where the khala, the place where you actually do qada al-haja, where you answer the call of nature, the toilet, and then you have a wudu area or you have a shower. So, in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the people used to go outside to answer the call of nature, usually, because there wasn't the idea of plumbing and all of that kind of a thing. They would make ghusl in the house. I mean, they would have a place to take a bath, but for qada al-haja, for answering the call of nature, one or two, they would actually go outside, and there would be an outside area. That area, the khala, is a place where the actual, where you sit, and there was a well-known area, unless you were traveling, like in the city, it would be one area, right? You do not mention the name of Allah, right? And that's why in the toilets that we have today, the actual toilet where you defecate or urinate, you do not mention the name of Allah. If you have a wudu area, like we do in the masjid here, where it is separate from the actual toilet, there's a door between the wudu area and the toilets. Right? So there is a separation between where you actually urinate, defecate, and where you make wudu. Then that wudu area is not governed by the rules of khala. Meaning at that wudu area, you can say Bismillah, you can say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, the dua after the wudu, you can say salam to people, you can talk, no problem. Right? In the houses, those of you that Allah is blessed with more money than me, many of them have the toilet has its own little cubby, it's got a little door, and then you have your sinks and stuff separated, right? So they have a little thing and they have a little door for the toilet, and then when you open that door, you come out and they have the nice big mirrors and double sinks and all the cool stuff that you guys have, right? In that would be the same ruling, because the door separates the toilet from the washing area. If your shower has a door that separates from the toilet area, the same thing in the shower, then you can mention the name of Allah, because that is separated. If you have a toilet and a sink, and it's all one thing, meaning that there is no separation, it's just the toilet and the sink, and now you're making wudu in the sink, then here, because it's all one area, the ruling of khala is what's prevalent, right? But now you get an issue, which is the Prophet ﷺ told us there is no wudu for the one that does not mention the name of Allah. In this hadith, we've explained the checking of authenticity and all that stuff in other rules. The ruling is, in the end, it's muhkam, it's applicable, it is authentic enough that the ruling is given upon it, right? So, what do? There's many easy ways. One is, before you enter the toilet, you say Bismillah with the niyyah of wudu. That's one way. Second way is, you can say Bismillah in your heart without reciting it, because you're in such a situation. And if nothing else, even if you said Bismillah in the toilet, because it's wajib for wudu, it is more of a precedence then the karaha of mentioning the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the bathroom. So either which way, if you're going to make wudu, you should say Bismillah. وإياكم. تفضلوا أبو سفيان.
If somebody makes something before they get up while they're sitting, where does that come from?
There is khilaf of ulama on some of these masail. One of them, the brother asked a question, I'll repeat, which is they make raf' al-yadayn while still jalis, while still sitting down. And this is one of the opinions we find in the Shafi'i madhab, which is that while you're still sitting in tashahhud, you make the raf' al-yadayn and then you get up. But if you want a good explanation, look in the book Sharh al-Mumti' al-Zad al-Mustaqni' of Shaykh Muhammad Salih ibn Uthaymeen. He made it very clear that this is not correct, because the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma إِذَا قَامَ, yani when it has that reference, it shows that Rasulullah was standing when he made the raf' al-yadayn. The ahadith used by the ulama that said you make the raf' al-yadayn sitting down are inferred, yani from certain wording the fact of inferred. But the hadith here is explicit, it's very clear. That's why the Jamhur ulama, the majority of the ulama, the vast majority, said that you make the raf' al-yadayn after standing up from the tashahhud. So you do not make it while sitting. This is not correct, even though it's an opinion, we respect the opinion, but we respect the dalil more.
Like you've covered in detail the fadail of seeking knowledge, but for someone that's a new student of knowledge that doesn't know anything, where do we begin? Where do we begin to seek knowledge?
Great question. Where do we begin seeking knowledge? In the last lecture we just gave, we talked about that, but I'll give you a summary, inshallah. The first thing you look at is what do you have available to you, right? Because if I say you begin with this or that, but in the area that you are, you don't have ulama or madaris or jama'at or so on available, then it doesn't really help you, right? So you look at what is available, right? Second is, you look at your standing as a student of knowledge. If you are a talib ilm, if you're a student of knowledge that's going to dedicate your life to knowledge and you're young, then no doubt the best thing, the Quran and Arabic language. Memorize the Quran, learn the Arabic language. That's the best thing to begin with. But that may not work for everybody, because if you're already older and you are unable to now sit and memorize the Quran and you don't know anything and you want to start studying, then the most important things are aqidah and fiqh. Because if your aqidah is wrong, then what's the point of whatever else you're doing? If your daily ibadat are incorrect, your salah, your siyam, your zakat, then you have ism, it's a sin, right? That is fardul ayn on you. It's an obligation, an individual obligation. So a lot of it depends, right? Also, what's available, because for example here in San Diego, we have different duroos, different halaqat. In this masjid, we have fiqh on Wednesdays, we have seerah on Saturdays. That's what we have Arabic. So now, that is what you can do. Let's say somebody wants to do mustalah al-hadith. Well, we had us, we don't right now, so you don't have that available, right? So you look at what all you need. Everybody needs Quran, everybody needs hadith, to tulab ilm, right? Everybody will have to do some mustalah, some usul al-fiqh, some background in tariq and seerah. Everybody will have nahu and sarf and so on. Then you look at what's available. Maybe the city you're in, there's a great scholar of nahu, then you focus on that. Right? When you're good on that, maybe you can go to another city and there's a great faqih and you focus on fiqh. Right? So the first thing everybody has to know is aqidah and fiqh. Tulab ilm or other. Right? Every individual should know the correct aqidah according to the Quran, the Sunnah, and the understanding of the Salaf of the Ummah, and the fiqh, which is correct. Not just what my father taught me how to pray, my grandfather taught me. No. What is the salah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? That is established in Sahih Hadith. This is what you have. What is the siyam, the zakat, the ahkam? Past that, then look at what's available to you. Right? You have to balance out. You can't just do one or the other, but sometimes you will give precedence to what's available. Hey, go ahead here.
When the person makes iqama, he reaches La ilaha illallah, do you repeat it?
Speak up a little bit.
When the person makes iqama and he reaches La ilaha illallah, do you repeat it?
Yes. When the person makes adhan or iqama, you repeat the words, right? Why? Because the iqama is also called the adhan, right? This is one of the things that takes the ruling of the adhan. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when the Muslim says the adhan, to repeat the wording, then you should repeat the wording, right? The only difference is for some things like hayya al-salah, hayya al-falah. We do not say hayya al-salah and falah. Rather, we say la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, because we have the clear hadith from it and so on.
My question is, why can't you have a beard in Jannah?
Why can't you have beard in Jannah? You could have anything you want in Jannah. You could ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's Jannah. But the life in Jannah is not like the life of this dunya. You will be different in Jannah. The size of your body, how you live, how you deal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created such a beautiful Jannah that no mind has imagined, no eye has seen, and no ear has heard. Right? So the things about Jannah in the Quran and Sahih Ahadith are imthal, they're examples. Right? One of the people, he asked the Prophet, will we farm in Jannah? Someone said, no, you don't farm in Jannah, Allah gives everything to you. So what if we want to farm? Like, of you can farm, right? So in Jannah, your appearance will be different, and it will be a very beautiful, amazing, something that you cannot imagine. But if you really want a beard, inshallah, when you get to Jannah, ask Allah, and Allah give you a beard in Jannah.
So, in Salah after Ruku', when you go back for standing, holding the hands versus putting the hands down.
Good question, man. You guys came hard questions today. Good. وضع اليدين بعد الركوع. This is a mas'ala where there is a lot of khilaf of ulama. Whether you fold or hang your hands after ruku'. طيب. Before I explain the mas'ala, and inshallah I'm working on a book that's going to cover this. I spent a lot of time on this mas'ala. Folding the hands before ruku'. For example, we have explicit, clear ahadith, so that is something that should be given precedence. No doubt to that, clear ahadith. Regarding where did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam put his hands after ruku', we don't have an explicit hadith that particularly mentions after ruku'. Neither for dangling or for folding. After ruku'. Before ruku', generally we do clear ahadith. So, no doubt, Salih ibn Sa'ad radiallahu anhu, Uwayd ibn Hajar and other ahadith. So this issue, it became a point of ikhtilaf amongst ulama. Because there's not an explicit hadith, this is not something we should fight over. This is not something that if somebody does one way or the other way, we don't call people mubtadi' or we don't draw lines here, because there is not a sarih and explicit hadith. That's the first thing. But now the next thing is, well, what do you do after ruku'? Okay? Well, both ways I said are acceptable, whether you put them down or fold them. But what's the best? So let's look at this mas'ala. We know that even in the time of Imam Ahmad, this question was asked. It's not a new question. Some people are like, oh, this just came up in the last 100 years. No, Imam Ahmad asked the question. He said, if you want, fold. If you want, hang. Right? We know that in Al-Muhalla, Ibn Hazm discussed it. In other books, it's been discussed. Al-Majmu'ah, Nawawi discussed it. Whichever opinion they take, but this is something that's been discussed. Even very early Hanafi ulama, like in Fath al-Qadir, they discussed this mas'ala. And many of them, in the Hanafi madhab, for example, both opinions exist. You fold and you make yourself. But now we look at adilla, evidences. Tayyib. The hadith of Sahal ibn Sa'ad radiallahu anhu in al-Bukhari, when he mentioned umirna, we were ordered to fold the hand al-yumna ala-dira' al-yusra fi as-salah. Get Bukhari, pick it up, look at the wording. What does it say? Fi as-salah. In the salah. He did not say fi al-qiyam, or fi al-qiyam al-ula, or qabla ruku'. No, he said fi as-salah, jannah. If we look at the hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where Ibn Hajar radiallahu mentioned, the Muslim Imam Ahmad, Sahih al-Jayyid chain, when he was standing, and his standing was so long, the Sahaba, they were looking at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they thought that he forgot that this was after ruku'. Pay attention to this hadith, a very clear dalil if you can open your mind to it. Meaning, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would get up after ruku' and he would stand. And usually the standing was not as long as before ruku', right? Usually it's a shorter standing. But one time, because there are many azkar that Rasulullah made at this time, he made it long. So Sahaba said, we thought he had forgotten that this was before ruku' until he went into sujood, then we went to sujood with him. Take it. Now, if there was ikhtilaf al-hal, if there was a difference in the halayn, in the two ways, meaning before ruku' he was folding and after he was dangling, then they wouldn't have had this doubt. Then they would have looked, because they said, we looked at the Prophet, they would have seen his hands are down, they would have said, yeah, we know. But because the fact that looking at him, they couldn't tell which was before or after, this is a dalil that most likely what was that he was folding. Okay? If you look at the Hadith of Ibn Hajar radiallahu anhu, where he mentions the qira'at in Quran and what he mentions the raf'ul yadayn, all of that, and in the end of it, he said, kana, he used to fold the hands for salah. So what does that tell you? The general rule for salah is to fold. Fi salah. Thank you. Now you will say, well, why don't you fold your hands in ruku'? Because we have a dalil khas, especially about ruku', that says Rasulullah used to put his hands on his knees in ruku'. Why don't you fold in tashahhud? Because there's a hadith that says he put his hands on his thighs in tashahhud. Why don't you fold your hands in sujood? Because there's a hadith. He puts his hand on the ground in sujood. But when you don't have a hadith, there is no hadith that says Rasulullah he put his hands down after ruku', tisalan or sadlan, then some of the ulama said that the general position of the hands is down. Meaning if you're walking around, generally where are your hands? By your sides. So that means you put them by your sides. But the problem with that qiyas is you're making qiyas of two different halat. One is outside of kharij salah, one is dakhil salah. So if you're talking about dakhil salah, like regularly you speak to people, in salah you cannot. Regularly you can be like, hey, how you doing, bro? What's going on, right? In salah you cannot. Regularly I can pick up this tea and make it 3 inches. Alhamdulillah, I can sip it. In salah I cannot. So the hal in salah cannot be given tashbih with hal kharij salah. So what is the am in salah? Al-wada' If you have a khas, a particular dalil, we give it precedence. So if they can bring me a hadith that says Rasulullah make irsal ba'da ruku', salah. But if you don't have a hadith that mentions wada' or irsal, folding or dangling, then the am is to fold. So I prefer the opinion that you fold the hands بعد الركوع as Sheikh Ibn Baz, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan and others took. But I respect the opinion of those ulama like Sheikh Al-Albani and others before that said you make irsal بعد الركوع. Is that too long? I'm writing a book on it, so that's a lot of information on it. Abdul Rahim is no good back there.
Can a Muslim marry a Ahl Kitab woman? And also is it required for us to move to a Muslim country from a secular?
Well, man, those are two hard questions. Okay, can a Muslim man marry a kitabiyya, a woman from Ahlul Kitab? Yes, it's in the Quran. But there are some shurut, there are some conditions, right? One, that he cannot find a Muslim wife, which usually you can nowadays, right? Secondly, that they agree that the household will be run according to Islamic rules, meaning she's not going to be like, we're going to be drinking and holding mass or something, right? The children will be raised according to Islam. She's interested in Islam. She's an actual practicing person from those religions. She's pure, tahir, meaning she's not tahir, meaning she's not out there hitting the raves and clubs and so on. So I don't suggest it. Like look, every alim that I've read on this issue has said it's best not to, right? A lot of issues come up later. Most of those marriages we see problems. So try to begin on the same. But can you? Of course you can, with certain conditions. The next question was, do we have to move to the Muslim lands? Yes, we should make hijrah. There are 3 reasons that Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen wrote, and I can add a 4th from the works of other ulama to be in Darul Kufr, or the land of Kuffar. 1, your life is in danger, which inshallah none of you guys have hints out for you in Muslim lands. If not in one land, you can go to another land. Muslim land is not your ethnic land. Every land of the Muslims is your and my land. We're Muslim, one ummah. Right? Second, you have no means of getting rizq in those countries like droughts and stuff, which is hardly ever the case. You may not live as good as you do in other countries, but you will live. Third, the only reason we really, most of us should have, is for da'wah. But if you say that you're here for da'wah, that means that should be your main priority. Above work, above family, above everything else, da'wah. Right? If you're going to use that excuse, you better make it action. You're actually daily concerned about how people can come to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fourth, I would add is, if there is some knowledge in those lands that does not exist in our land and it's needed for the Muslim ummah, yes, you can temporarily do that as well. If not, then people should make hijrah. Now, where would you go and how? That's all stuff that's for further discussion. So we have one from the sky, so let's take this one. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Do we have to make sujood when we are reading Quran and we reach the ayah that tells us to make sujood? Yes, you should make sujood. It's mustahab. the hukam on sujood tilawah is mustahab. How do we know it's mustahab? It's from the hadith of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, that he read the ayah of Sajda in Jum'ah, and he made sujood, and everybody made sujood with him. Next Jum'ah, he read the ayah, he didn't make sujood. And then afterwards, he explained to the people that I did it, so you would know that it's mustahab and not obligatory. But you should. Obviously, I mean, when an ayah comes that is from the ayat of sujood al-tilawah, then no doubt we should. You can do it right then, or you can delay it. And you can do it a little bit later. Like if you're driving and you hear the ayat, Allahu Akbar, now you're crashed and that. Right? So you can delay it. You can, when you get home or you get to the masjid, then you can make it. And you can make one for multiple ayat. Like if you're reading, you wait to the end of the surah or end of the few surah that you're going to read, and you make one, you can do it. Like in salah, the imam can do it right when he recites it, or he can delay it. Right? Anyway, so those are some of the ahkam. Who has to make sujood for the ayah? The one who's reading and the one who's attentively listening. Like if you're sitting in a masjid and somebody's listening to your recitation, then both of you should do it. But if somebody else is sitting on the other side of the masjid reading their own book, they do not. There's a hadith of Uthman ibn anhu, where the people were reading the Quran in the masjid, and he was sitting in another halaq in the masjid, and when they read an ayah of sujood tilawah, they made sujood, he didn't. So when they told him, he said, we didn't sit for that. And we weren't sitting listening to you, so we do not. So the one who's reading and the one who's, but if you're in the masjid and you're praying salah, if the imam makes it, obviously you have to make it. The imam makes sujood, you have to make sujood. There, it's hot, and then.
So on the same topic, what's the proper way to make sujood tilawah? Should you start standing or should you start just straight in sujood? And is there a specific
That's a good question.
tahiyya or anything?
How to make sujood tilawah? The basic of it is you do not need to be standing. You just go straight into sujood. So if you're standing in salah, you go straight to sujood. If you're sitting, you go straight to sujood. You should make the takbir. Say Allahu Akbar before going in. Whether you make it one or one takbir will be enough, right? Because
If you're outside of salah?
even if you're outside of salah, because outside of salah that would be your takbir al-ihram. To make a second takbir would be mustahab, but not necessary, right? Then you make your sajda. According to some of the madahib, like Hanabila, you make taslim afterwards. Because they said, Rasulullah said about salah, that it begins with takbir and ends with taslim, and they consider this to be a form of salah, even if it doesn't have ruku and other things, like janazah and so on. Ikhtilaf ulama on that issue, but it's like a regular sajda. And you recite the azkar that you would make it sajda.
One of the related question about the living in the non-Muslim land. So, what would be the ruling if someone came here? When he came, it was not his intention to make the da'wah. He came here for better living. Can he change the intention?
Change the intention. If somebody comes to this land, let's say you came as a kid, your parents brought you, you didn't have a choice, right? You make your niyyah. Then you came here to make money. Then you realize, you make tawbah, you turn to Allah, you change your niyyah. But if your niyyah is for da'wah, that means really that should be your top priority. That meaning, like if you have a work meeting and a da'wah event, you go to the da'wah event. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you have to be the speaker, but you can be involved in the da'wah. You can be spreading the da'wah. You can be organizing. You can be doing all kinds of things. But that has to be your main reason, which, I don't know, a lot of us don't make the cut, you know. But we should change our niyyah and make the cut, inshallah. I think there was somebody in the back you were saying?
Oh, okay, that brother.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yes, you probably have heard this explanation, but this is in reference to television. People give the explanation that they watch television merely for entertainment. So what's your take on that?
Meaning, is it permissible to watch TV for entertainment?
No, I'm saying that there's many ills to watching TV,
Yeah.
and maybe some positive. But the excuse people give is you're watching for entertainment.
Good question. Watching TV for entertainment with all the ills and haram that comes with it. May Allah protect us all. Unfortunately, this has become a part of our society's daily life nowadays. There is almost everybody watches some amount of TV. I think the best thing is first to look at the greater harms and lesser harms, right? Meaning there are TV shows and there are movies that obviously have inappropriate scenes and things like that. So those things obviously everybody should totally abstain from, right? Past that, you have to look at when television takes you away from salah or dhikr or halaqat, which again becomes a very serious issue, because then if you miss your salah because you were watching, what's the vampire one, Moonlight? No. Twilight, right? Because I've never seen it actually, but people are like so hardcore about it, it's crazy, right? So then it becomes almost a form of shirk, and Allah protect us, because you know your salah is there, it's followed this time, and you're going to miss the salah. I mean, it's crazy, right? Allah musta'an. And then you have obviously people who watch way too much of it, like 4, 8, 10 hours a day, some people, right? And then they say we don't have time for Quran, we don't have time for salah, we don't have time for knowledge, and so on. So I think everybody should first start by trying to evaluate what's the best, lowest harm they can do, and then inshallah slowly try to get away from it. Make your entertainment to be things that are beneficial, right? OMF channel, we have plenty of fun videos you can watch of people yelling and getting crazy and stuff, right? We know many brothers that gave up their Netflix accounts because they watch OMF videos and so on. Duroos and halaqat you can watch on YouTube, reading, coming to the masjid, playing some kind of beneficial sport or exercise. Try to get into this. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala benefit us all.
Can the Quran in fact, or what the spirit will in the Quran? What kind?
No idea what you said. Maybe you could take the math just for
What kind of spirit I need to read the Quran?
What kind of speed?
Speed, like fast or?
No, you should read the Quran slowly. Right? You don't have to be Qari Abdul Qasim and get like really slow, but you have to read it slow enough that the words are understandable and you don't break the rules of tajweed and ahkam of mudud, stretching, and because la and la can have a different meaning, right? When you stretch the mudud or not, that's why some mudud are wajib. So you recite the Quran at a speed that at minimum keeps to the rules of tajweed and the rules of the mudud and ahkam of qira'at. If you can read it at that, you're okay. Otherwise, to read it slow enough where you can ponder upon it and think about it, repeat ayat, is from the sunnah. But to make it with the maqamat and all that fancy stuff that is not from the sunnah, that is not from the rules of tajweed, no, then it becomes a show. But here is over.
Does tasbih have to be at a certain volume, or like what are the sunnahs of like making your tasbih or like tasbih?
Your adhkar in salah or outside of salah?
Outside of salah.
Outside of salah, best to make your adhkar silently. This is the regular way of dhikr, to make it silent. Where it is when you're actually reciting, but somebody sitting next to you will not hear you. There is 5 levels of recitation found, meaning like in salah and stuff. We have that in the Zad al-Mustaqi and Durus, you can watch those inshallah. But regularly making your adhkar, you should do it quietly, where you are not thinking it, you are reading it, but somebody sitting next to you should not hear you. But then that's just a general rule, right? Some adhkar are done out loud, like Ameen in Salah, because there's hadith on it, right? Some adhkar, like the Khatib in Jum'ah, he will make out loud, but those are special cases.
Is it permissible for a brother in Islam who is married to a non-believer and is in the process of performing da'wah, and the spouse is showing interest, but the spouse asks for the husband to join the pagan holidays, for example, Christmas, Thanksgiving, even though the husband in his heart, as Allah sees our niyyah, hates it and doesn't feel comfortable when they're there, but he's going for the sake of saving the da'wah, to bring her to Islam. Is that permissible?
Good, let me repeat the question, which is a really good question. If there's a Muslim man, for example, married to a kitabiyya, and he's somebody who's Christian or Jewish, and he's trying to give her da'wah, and she's interested, like it's working, mashallah, she's coming close to Islam, but she wants him to go to a pagan festival like Christmas or Easter or Halloween or Hanukkah or I don't know, whatever else. That's more, right? Nobody ever talks about the Jewish ones, why is that, right? Alright, so Diwali, well, she's not Hindu, birthday, okay. Yeah, that is a pagan festival. Can he go with the niyyah of da'wah? Right? Like meaning he's going, but in his heart he hates it. He's just going there so that he can show good relations and give da'wah. Before I answer that, I will just flip it a little bit, right? Which is, let's say she tells him, come make sujood to a cross with me. Can you make sujood to a cross with the knee of da'wah? Same thing. Okay? Pagan participation in a pagan festival is like participating in a ritual ibadah of another religion. Right? These festivals, like Christmas, they did not come from Christianity. They did not come from the Bible. We challenge any Christian anywhere in the world to show us 25th of December as the date of birth for Jesus ﷺ in the Bible or any historic record. Right? Or to show that early Christians, from the followers of Jesus ﷺ, or even the first few hundred years, that they celebrated Christmas. There is nothing. In fact, I have a video on Christmas. We give you references. All the early Christian church fathers condemned it as a pagan festival. This was something that has roots in idol worshipping, sun worshipping, pagan, ship, right? One of the popes, because of the weakness of his, I guess you could say, I'm not going to say iman, but let's say weakness of his sticking to what he believed in, he incorporated this pagan festival into Christianity. Same thing with Easter, same thing with Saint Valentine's Day and all these other things, to try to attract the pagans. Right? And this is documented. There's a book called Uncommon History of Common Things, National Geographic. I have it. You'll see in some of my videos. You can look it up. Non-Muslims have documented this. Right? So this is a pagan ritual. Right? Even the birthday cakes. People are like, oh, it's birthday. They say, oh no, nobody. You know where birthday cakes came from? This was a Greek idol worshipping worship. What they would do is they would celebrate the moon goddess on the day of their birth, and they would have a cake or a pie or a sweet, and they would light candles. Oh, sound familiar? To light it up to show the example of the moon, the light moon. You can look, same book by the way, you can look it up. I'm not like a conspiracy theorist, I didn't come up with this. Look it up. Uncommon History of Common Things. If you don't have it, I have it, I can let you borrow the book. Non-Muslims wrote it. That they said the birthday came from a Greek goddess worshipping practice. Right? And what they would do is they would pray, make a wish, blow out the candles. Right? What do you do today? Make a wish, blow out the candles. Right? And I know there are imams and others that are selling out by saying, oh, it's okay, because they got pressure, I know. And they know better because I've talked to them personally, right? But, whatever, that's up to them. You will not be free in front of Allah because of a fatwa. If that was true, then the Christians and Jews would be free. They would say, you know what, our priests told us. When Allah talks about them worshipping their priests and rabbis, one of the Sahaba asked the Prophet ﷺ, said, oh, Mr. Allah, we used to be Christian, we didn't worship them. Rasulullah ﷺ, didn't you take halal what was haram and make haram that which was halal? That you worship them. So if somebody gives you a fatwa that birthdays are okay, or riba is okay, or zina is okay, or alcohol is okay, or whatever else is out there nowadays, and you say, well, that's what Shaykh said, that's okay, then you will have to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for worshipping that Shaykh over what Allah wa Rasul. May Allah protect us. So, the answer, which I kind of went a little bit off subject, is you cannot go to Christmas and Easter with the niyyah of da'wah. Just like you cannot go and hit the clubs and get drunk with the niyyah of da'wah, or go worship idol with the niyyah of da'wah. Da'wah has to be done in that which is good. You can take them to a nice dinner on a regular night and make ikram for them and buy things from them. Even you can use zakat money to give to those who are interested in Islam, things like this to bring them closer to Islam, yes. But you cannot participate in haram with the niyyah of da'wah. Hold on.
Can I read Guide to the Sun, Creed book by Sheikh Saleh Al-Fawzan on my own?
The Guide to a Sound Creed is an excellent book by Sheikh Saleh Al-Fawzan. It's been translated into English. You can read it, but again, I would really suggest getting a teacher, right? Because Aqidah has some delicate things as well. And you may be reading it and reading into it your mindset without having a teacher. So with Aqidah, definitely, if you don't have a teacher, you do have these books explained on YouTube, Kitab al-Tawheed, al-I'tiqad, and so on. We have it on our channel as well. You can at least watch the videos to make sure that what you're reading is in accordance to what the author of the book meant. Brother here.
If I say Allahu Akbar from the heart, will it count it on my book?
If what?
If I say Allahu Akbar from my heart, will it count inside of my book?
Like he doesn't say it out loud.
If you say something and it is within your mind, but you do not recite it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows it. But the malaika record that which is done and said. They don't record thoughts. Imagine if they recorded thoughts, man, we'd all be in trouble, right? I want to kill that guy. Right? So we are not held accountable for thoughts, nor are you rewarded for thoughts. Right? Your niyyah gets you reward. Right? But what you think, Allah knows it. Right? Even what you don't know, like subconscious, Allah knows it. Right? But Allah will not hold you accountable for thoughts. Malaika don't record your thoughts. They will record what you said, what you did, what you were good and bad. Good? Let me read this one, then we'll get to it, inshallah. What shall I do if my husband verbally abuses me and is constantly calling me names in front of my family and children, belittles me, and with the slightest mistake or misunderstanding he tells me to get out or go away? Oh man, if your husband's here, I'm going to have a hard time answering this question. Before I answer this, there's always three sides to every story, right? His, hers, and the truth. Right? So I cannot give like a hukam, a ruling, without hearing the husband's side of it, right? But generally, I will give advice. If a husband is verbally or physically abusive and is constantly doing some things as mentioned, this is not the way of a good Muslim. Right? This is not the way that is correct. You can advise him nicely, politely, if he takes your advice, which probably not from what it seems like. But if he does, great. If he does not, you can maybe speak to some scholars about the particular situation, or somebody who your husband respects. Like maybe there is an elder brother or somebody who he respects, and you can maybe speak to them, to speak to your husband, and try to get somebody to consult with between you guys, and try to find ways to make sulh, to make a resolution. If not, if it continues, you can ask for a khullah. That would be an extreme case, but we hope that it would not go to that. Thank you. Fadl Harun, in front of you and then in front of you.
Assalamu
Alaikum assalam.
The five that he prayed, it was a significant prayer. And he said,
Tayyib, the five salawats, obviously the five salawat themselves are fard. They're obligatory upon every Muslim. And tarku salah faqad kafar is enough of a warning for us to be consistent on our salawat. Is it wajib in jama'ah? If you live close enough to a masjid, then you can hear the adhan without a speaker, meaning without a speaker system. If somebody was to give adhan with their strong voice, and you live close enough to the masjid that you could hear the adhan, then it's wajib. Then it's obligatory for you to pray in the masjid. If you live further from that, like you're far away where you would not hear the adhan, then it's mustahab. It's still a highly emphasized sunnah to pray in the masjid as much as you can. For men. For women, they can pray in the masjid, but their salah at home is better. But if there is some benefit like a dars going on and so on, then it's better for them to come. Dr. Sir, sorry, I gotta give preference.
I have a question. Last night, one of our Sheikh, I believe his name is Sheikh Pasha, he mentioned something about giving zakat. And he said people send money overseas instead of giving it to many poor people living under the Philippines and this and that. In which I think it does not mean that to encourage them to Islam. Just simply there are people living under the bridges.
Yeah.
Give zakat to those people instead of sending it overseas.
Good question. Since he's going to be here later, I'll let him explain his own. He's here? He's making salat, mashallah. I will let him explain his niyyah. But the general rule, I think, is that if there are people that are in the Sharia, mustahiq, they meet the qualifications of zakat in your locality, then they have the most right upon you, right? But if there are not, like if there are people in your area that do not meet those requirements, then send it out to other areas is perfectly acceptable. The brothers here, because we said that. Brother. Yes.
My wife actually had a question. She asked if women can wear gloves with their niqab.
Women can definitely wear gloves with their niqab. They don't have to wear gloves, but it's good for them to cover their hands, even if it's with the cloth or so on. So they wear gloves, nothing wrong with that.
I wanted to expand a bit on the question earlier in terms of personal issues like that, with more like contemporary issues that was not present in the Prophet's time. If there is a difference of opinion, say hypothetically like machine slaughter,
sure.
If there's a difference of opinion, do we take precedence over one over the other?
Good question. When there is khilaf of ulama on a mas'ala where there is not a sarih dalil, like an explicit qat'i or clear explicit dalil, what do we give precedence? Even when there is a new issue, like machine slaughter, hand slaughter, and so on, the ulama of Islam will utilize the principles of qiyas. And they will use the evidence to give their answer. So here, the evidence will still give you the stronger from the weaker answer. Right? In the long run, everybody needs a sheikh. Unfortunately, nowadays it's very hard to get. And if you have a good sheikh who has adillah, evidences, then the best thing for awam to go to their shiur. Right? But if the shiur are going something that's against the adillah, they're telling you eat at Burger King or whatever like this, then obviously we cannot take those opinions because they go against the evidence. Nobody's qawl should be taken above that of the Quran and Sunnah. Yes? If there are two ulama and they give two different opinions, then obviously look at the evidences. Even in things that are new, people like for a machine slaughter, some of the machine slaughter, what they do is they turn it on, say Bismillah, and they leave it. They're not there all day, right? Now what happens, the machine's going and the chicken going, nobody's saying Bismillah, nobody's checking. Some chickens are going the whole head, some are chopping the whole thing off. How can this be considered okay? Right? On the other hand, as Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen said, that if it's machine, meaning it's a person operating a knife saying Bismillah, even on a bat, then it's permissible. Why? He gave evidence. He said this is like the one who's hunting, right? So even the new issues, ulama don't just make up answers. They look at evidences and make qiyas, and looking at that evidence will know the strong from weak. But those there,
Was it permissible for someone working at jobs like Uber Eats or stuff like that, where they're delivering?
In Uber Eats and so on, because they have pork, because they have haram meat, they have, I think some of them even have alcohol and so on, that would not be permissible. Right? If the food was all halal and good and clean and all that, then it would be fine.
Okay, I'm asking very beneficial question. It is very important.
So all questions are important.
So that question is how we have enough shaitan. They are finding us enough that your child is commanding you something bad, and also Satan is there. He's supporting yourself with to do something bad sin. So I'm asking you how to be successful from yourself and Satan.
Say, how to protect yourself from your nafs and shaitan?
Yeah, how to be successful from them.
Huh?
How to trap them. How to be successful from Satan and your nafs.
How to protect yourself?
How to trap them, yeah.
How to trap them?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can really trap shaitan. I think he's a pretty crafty guy.
In the morning when you want to wake up for Fajr, they tell you to go back to bed.
Right, when you wake up for Fajr, shaitan does tell you to go back to bed.
Yeah.
But I don't have like a mouse trap for shaitan. If that's what you're looking for, like we put like some cheese, you put like a good book inside, and I got you. No, But you can protect yourself from shaitan with first and foremost your adhkar, right? When you make your adhkar in the day and the night, if you read Ayatul Kursi, for example, before going to sleep, if you make your adhkar after salah, if you make your adhkar and so forth, and you make your adhkar that are related to protection from shaitan and his waswas, and so on. Secondly, by reading the Quran. Of course, the Quran is something that is a protection. Making your salah on time, in jama'ah, being with good friends, all those ways will protect you from shaitan, iblis, and the shayateen, from ins and jinn, and so on. So dedicate yourself to those Islamic activities and you will be fine, inshallah. Let me take the sisters. We give precedence to sisters' questions. So, can a person wear jerseys with athletes' names on the back of the shirt? That's a good question. I saw some fatwa online about this, and I spoke to a couple of scholars myself in other countries who I respect. So there are some situations. One is you just buy a jersey and it has a name. You don't really care about the name. You just got it, and the name doesn't have like a bad meaning. It's not something that represents a different religion. Here, it's permissible as mubah, right? But if the name is of a particular kafir and it brings love and a respect and a connection between you and that kafir, and it leads you towards respecting ta'aleem or honoring the kuffar over the Muslims, then it would not be permissible, right? We don't want to say not permissible because somebody may go to the store and they, mashallah, they got 50% off on a jersey and they just buy it and whatever it says, as long as nothing haram, like no cross or no like nothing haram on it, then it's mubah. But if somebody's like, I love, I'm old, I'm going to say Michael Jordan here, so, right? It's Jordan, and then they want to get a jersey that says Jordan, and then they want to put a poster of Jordan and stuff, then it starts to take you down that slippery slope where you start to give honor to fusaq and fujar and things like this, and Allah protect us from those things. When reciting Surah Al-Fatiha in Salah, can one split the last ayah by taking a pause? Yes. So in the Quran, and I'll leave these type of questions to Shaykh Akasha, he's definitely more qualified than me in this. But the general rule is that you can stop in the Quran in places where it's permissible to stop, where there is no hukam that you have to continue. And in the Musahif you will find the qalli and salli and all those things that give you rulings where you can stop, where you cannot stop, where it's better to continue but jaiz to stop, where it's jaiz to continue and better to stop. And this is why when you sit with the ulama and you learn tajweed and Quran recitation and those rules, they will explain it. But generally, in places where it does not affect the meaning and it is permissible, you can stop even if it's in the middle of an ayah. I think I'll stop because Shaykh Akasha is here and he's better than me. So if he can come, I will stop, or do you guys want to stop?
One serious question.
One serious.
Brother or sister is asking, can we break ties with parents who are hitting very bad with sexual abuse and everything? That I end up bleeding and I'm away from my brother.
That's a hard, not a hard question, but a very sad question. Can you break ties with a parent that is sexually and physically abusive? Yes, for sure. And if you haven't, call the authorities. Talk to an imam. Nobody should be sexually abused. This is something haram and can never be acceptable.
Question on the occasion. Somebody's asking about your aqidah. He watches the channel. And he's asking, can he go to any masjid regardless of what aqidah they have and pray behind the imam there?
My aqidah, alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah, I am on the aqidah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the aqidah that follows the Quran, the Sunnah, and the Salaf of the Ummah, the Athari aqidah, that which is from the Athar, from the Quran and Hadith, that is my aqidah. You cannot go to any masjid regardless of their aqidah, because if there are people who do shirk, then salah behind a mushrik is not acceptable. Right?
And the last you said, do you have to follow one of the 4 imams, if so, which one?
Do you have to follow one of the 4 imams? So this question is like a series in it of itself, but I'll give a short answer. We cannot say it's obligatory to follow one of the 4 imams because we don't have any sarih dalil that would obligate that. Right? Because, like, what about before the four Imams? What about people who had other madhab, like the Zahiri madhab or Imam Shawkani or others and so on? We cannot say it's obligatory. At the same time, we would say for the layman, it is important for them to have shuyukh. Not a madhab. تفضل تعال.
الله يسعدك. الله يسعدك.
So, first, forgiveness to answer the question. So we would say that for the layman, it's important to have shuyukh, not madahib. Laymen do not have madahib. This is a misconception. Today somebody's a layman, they say we're Hanafi. But do you know what's the difference between Hanafi and Shafi'i madhab? No. Do you know Abu Hanifa's name? No. You just know his kunya. Do you know 5 books of Hanafi fiqh? No. Do you know the usul? No. You're not Hanafi. You can claim it all day long, you can tattoo it on your back, that would be haram. But I'm just saying somebody could, but that doesn't make you Hanafi. Somebody's Shafi'i, somebody's Maliki. Layman follow shuyukh. You go to a shaykh, you tell him, can I do this, can I do that? He gives you an answer. How do you know whether that's rajih, whether that's a mu'tamid, whether that's the fatwa given on, what is the khilaf within the madhab? Which, within the Hanafi madhab you have khilaf. Within the Shafi'i madhab you have aqwal. In the Hanabila you have khilaf. In the Malikiyya you have khilaf. In the Zahiriyya you have khilaf. Which is rajih? When you study a madhab, you look at all the different books, and the mu'tamid books have khilaf. Quduri al-Hidayah have khilaf in Hanafi. يعني مختصر الخليل يعني another books in the Maliki method Ibn Abdul Barr, Ibn al-Qasim has khilaf. يعني النبوي رفعي has khilaf. Ibn Qudama, Ibn Taymiyyah, Majduddin Ibn Taymiyyah, not Muhammad Taqiyuddin, Majduddin, they have khilaf within the madhab. As a layman, how do you know which one is the madhab? But this is just, if you're a lay person, get a good sheikh that's upon the Quran and Sunnah, the right aqidah, ask them their questions and call it that's your madhab. For tullab ilm, when you are going to develop, then the madahib are a very beneficial way. Right? Why? You begin with the matan, then you develop. Like for example, Ibn Qudama, he wrote Al-Umda. You study Umda, then you go to Al-Muqni', then you go to Al-Kafi, then Al-Mughni. If you jump to Al-Mughni, you'll be lost. If you go from Ibn Qudama's Al-Umda to يعني روض الطالبين في النبوي or so, then you're going to be lost. One you're going to read this, one you're going to read that, right? So for Tullab ilm, to use the structure of the madhab is wonderful, as long as you don't make that madhab. What is a madhab? Path. Madhab, right? So it's the path. What's the goal? The sunnah. You don't want to make the path the goal. You don't want to be like, no matter what, I'm going to justify the Hanafi, Shafi'i, Maliki, no. The path should lead you to what? The sunnah. If the hadith is sahih, established, the ayah is there and so on, that's the goal. You don't leave that. But to get to the sunnah, to reach that, if you use a madhab, nothing wrong with that, not shirk or any of that kind of weirdness that people have, but within that, right? So I think that's good. Yeah, I'm not answering you. Salah? 10 minutes. We'll, if you don't mind, we'll break to give the adhan. After the salah, after the adhan and salah, inshallah, Shaykh Akasha will speak.